Welcome back. Here's part 2 of the easy setup of Cucumber with Java and Selenium. So we have set up our development environment, which hopefully didn't take a millennium. Then we created our project directory with the aim in following Java OOPS concepts, more or less, where we aim to use abstraction, encapsulation and association to ensure we're not designing nonsense. But the truth is, we can't aim for coding perfection, for automation of UI-based tests. Now with Cucumber, we need to keep states between the various Cucumber steps. Hopefully you know what I mean by Cucumber steps. So here is the first hurdle, and we'll overcome it with simple implementation of the Pico Container. Then we'll go on to create a good BaseTest class and a good BasePage class to organize and set up our tests and Selenium web drivers efficiently. Now let's start coding. So we start with the feature file and work backwards. It's the way it should be, creating tests from behavior-driven factors. So what I mean by this is the creation of our scenario and the .feature file first. And the first thing is we need to actually name this Boost Newsletter .feature for it to be picked up. Then we will construct our test runner so that we can run this unimplemented feature file, and then you'll see how this can lead to our step defs. Then that will lead to our service logic, business logic, and then our pages, so it's less complex. The test case we're aiming to automate is navigate to the local weather from the BBC News homepage. Now let's see that now. So the test case we are aiming to automate is navigate to the local weather from the BBC News homepage, sorry. So let's do that now. Let's see. So we're on the BBC News homepage, and then next so the test scenario is going to be to check the navigation from the BBC News header bar. So click weather, and then to assert that the local weather has been displayed. That's literally a quick scenario for us today. Alright, so let's just put that feature BBC News header navigation. That's the feature we're testing. Scenario: when a user navigates to a user on the BBC News homepage navigates to local weather via the top bar. Cool. So let me just show you Cucumber docs, because when you're doing these feature files you have to make sure they are exactly in the right format. So the best thing to use is the Cucumber reference. Alright, there we go, that was easy. So we have to make sure that we're using the same structure, the same colons and so on, and the spaces. So we're going to use given, when, then. That is the behavior-driven syntax of Cucumber, and that's something that hopefully the business team will be using to describe what they expect the application to do from a business point of view. Given a user is on the BBC News homepage, when the user selects weather, then the local weather is displayed. See, I've put this in quotes here. That's for a reason. So hopefully now, I was saying that we're gonna work backwards. So we have this feature file, and then we just have to create a runner now to run this feature file, and then that should automatically generate some kind of step def templates that we can just copy and paste into our classes. So they'll be automatically generated when we run it, and they'll be in a stack trace. So you'll see what I mean. And we're also going to have to create just template classes of our step defs. UI step definitions, just to have the class there. And let's just create the class for the services as well. So this is where the business logic is. So it's something like navigation service, and another one called validation service. So the validation service will deal with all things in terms of validating elements. So the methods will take objects and validate that they match the expected criteria. The navigation service just deals with the actual methods for moving around the site and simulating the user's decisions and actions. Alright, let's go and finish off this runner. First things first, we need to add a TestNG annotation, just so that we can run it as a TestNG test if necessary. And then we also need to add Cucumber options. Now this turns it more or less into a Cucumber project. Alright, so now we have to add certain variables in here for it to be picked up as a Cucumber test. But in order to let this to work with our TestNG, we're going to have to extend a larger class, which is known as the, let me think, it's the abstract TestNG, yep, there it is. Okay, now now we're going to have to add our Cucumber options. So there's three main options that we should add. One of them is plugin, and this defines the kind of structure that your feature files is going to be read as. So there's like a default kind of one which is used by nearly everyone, and it is like this. You can find this all in the Cucumber documentation for the Cucumber reference. And then the glue, which is basically the step definitions. So we have a package called stepdefs. So that's where we'll use all of our glue. By default, it will assume that the stepdefs are in the same package as the runner. But that's obviously not how our project is created. And lastly is the features. So these are the features that will be used in this test runner. So you can see now that you can create runners for specific groups of tests, but that's not the way that I would recommend. Well, I would recommend under certain circumstances, but one thing that I think is very useful is to add group tags to your feature files. So you can add a tag to the entire feature file, or you can add it to just a scenario, so it has to be on top of the implementation. So the feature file, the tag could be test1, and then you could pass in through your build script into configurations. There's actually an option that you can pass in through here, which will define the tests that you want your Cucumber runner to use. So this means that if you're using something like GoCD or Jenkins, you can define which tests you want to be run inside the build script. So you wouldn't have to edit any code. But okay, I'm getting carried away here, so let's just focus on this. So we're going to run the features. So we need the path to the features. Where's that source? Test. There we go. So this is actually all it takes to get the test using Cucumber. Alright, I think we're ready to go. So now let's run this so we can quickly generate our step definition templates. Oh, sick. So there we go. And it's really cool here, see how the regex has been generated for us, so we can just copy and paste it directly. So this regex will allow us now to add any value in here, and the logic can be handled in our step definitions. So we have one step defined. Say for example, if we wanted to automate checking each of those links in the toolbar, we can just pass in a different word. And you see when it's generated, it has this pending exception because it knows it's a template. So make sure you remember to remove those throws as you're using them. Let's import that. Alright, cool. Okay, now let's just finish off creating the templates of the classes. So we're going to have the BBC News home page and also the BB local weather page. Cool. So the next step, which I would recommend, is to construct your base test and your BasePage classes. So then we can actually start creating the drivers, the web driver, which is going to be handled and shared around the page objects. So again, we need a BasePage class that will house our methods, that will be extended by our BBC News pages, which can pass around the Selenium driver properly, and any other methods. And also note that in the BasePage class we don't initialize the WebDriver object. The initialization is done in the BaseTest class. You'll see what I mean. So yeah, so that's the main distinction between the two. So let's start writing this thing. Actually, I'm going to start with the BaseTest. Maybe you could have guessed this is easy. Now, so the BaseTest is kind of the easy part. This is the class that specializes in initializing, providing, and potentially closing a WebDriver. You can customize it though, so it contains methods for creating Internet Explorer drivers or headless tests and so on. But now I'm going to quickly set up it for the chromedriver. But this means you're going to have the chromedriver executable downloaded onto your machine. Alright, let's go. So the first thing we need is we have a private static WebDriver. Driver. Whoops. And now we can also, so we need a method for starting the driver too. So this is going to be starting the Google Chrome driver. Oops. Alright, so we got there in the end, and we're also going to have a get driver method, which is going to have to be used by the BasePage class. So So the base page will obtain the driver from the base test when it's required, and then the pages can use that driver how it wishes. So the three things that we need in this: start driver, get driver, close driver. We're going to need a little bit of logic in here as well. So the logic is basically, if the driver is null, then we create a new one. If not, then use the same one that we have currently. Or start one from scratch. And return it for the base page. Alright, and then there will be a method for closing the drivers too. Cleanup method, useful. Alright, but the thing is here we haven't finished. So for chromedriver, it's not going to work. We're going to have to install the chromedriver exe for us to basically run our tests on Chrome. So let's do that now quickly. So as simple as this, you go to chromedriver.chromio.org, get the latest stable release. So for Windows, take it, zip it up. So I've redone this. So you unzip it, and then place that location wherever you wish. I will place that Alright, so I've extracted it now, and I'm going to place it directly into our project. If I can just... Alright, if I can just put that bloody thing in here. Under my resources, I'm just going to place it there, chromedriver exe. Cool. Now if we want this to actually work, we're going to have to basically tell our code where it is. This is all on the documentation, by the way. You can find this quite easily online. Copy path, put the path straight in. Sorry to watch this painfulness, slowness. Maybe you can just meditate as you watch it. Alright, so now we're set up to literally just start Selenium. So that's the base test more or less done. I'll finish the close driver later. Why is it complaining about something? Oh yes. A little bit clearer. Alright, so the base page now, a little bit more complex. So now, base page. It's a little more complex in terms of Java knowledge, but I'll try to make it a little bit simple and a little bit just practical. So because we can't initialize the abstract constructor, which will be BasePage, will be the abstract class to our pages, when we call the method for opening a new page, we're going to have to use a method that calls a new instance of the class of a generic type. I'll create it in BasePage and you'll see. So we're also going to have a value protected variable. And a weight. We can define our weight straight away. So this means defining how long, say, you want your implicit weight to be. Now the constructor. Every time we visit a page, we're going to want to initialize something. So we get our driver directly from the BaseTest. That's a little bit pointless. Okay. And the logic is all handled in the BaseTest, as you saw. The logic for determining whether or not it's a driver that exists or not. And now I'm going to have to add another method in. So this method will enable us to open URL before initializing. This. So by running this, this new get method on our pages, we will then instantiate this page, which will then instantiate the constructor, which will then get the correct driver, which is good. Okay, so as you see, it's complaining about a T. That's because I haven't finished. This has to extend then a generic version of itself. T extends base page T. Perfect. This is now all we need to use our driver in a very efficient and safe way with Cucumber, and allowing the state to be maintained between steps and so on. But we haven't finished yet. We're going to get this thing running. Alright, so now let's update our page objects so that they use this base page. Same for this. Wheel. So let's get back into the frame of mind where we're working backwards to ensure we don't miss anything. So we work backwards from the feature file. So first step, what do we do? Okay, so we have to use our services. Okay, cool. Okay, so now in order to use our services, we're going to have to use a Pico Container to make sure our dependencies don't get jumbled up. The Pico Container will let us handle our services and the service layer cleanly and efficiently. So that means we're also, in our step definition file, we're going to have a setup method. And this is going to have to set up our Pico Container. The thing is, we haven't got the dependency for that, have we? Oh, we have. Here it is. So you're going to have to need a dependency called the Cucumber Pico Container. Now let's just quickly walk through how to get that again. Maven Dependency. Pico Container. Cucumber JVM Pico Container. Copy this into your POM. And then you can set up your project properly. So we first need to define our variables. Navigation service. And then because actually these are final, okay, we initialize these in a constructor. Navigation service, validation service. So we've initialized these in a constructor, and we can use them now. We can pass these around our step defs, and it's fine, it's good. But we still need to set up the Pico container so that this works. I could make a whole new video to explain why this is necessary, but just take my word for it for now. Basically, it's necessary for containing your states between steps. Pico.add component. Just add each one like this, simple as that. As long as it happens at the beginning of your tests. Alright, cool. That's true. Okay, it doesn't have to be final, it should not be a final. Doesn't necessarily need to be initialized. Okay, so now we can start putting our logic in. So a user is on the BBC News homepage. What are they going to do? So we call the navigation service and open home page. Sounds like it makes sense to me. Create the template. Now this is going to have to use the method to get the home page. But first it's going to have to need static variables again. These. Local. Oops. Alright, cool. So now we can create the page instances and pass them around. So your homepage instance is going to be created by the BBC News homepage through a method called open. So everything in terms of interacting with the web page, opening the web page, happens on the page itself, but the logic for handling this and passing around and actually calling the method happens on the service. Create method, done. Okay, so now this should this should call a new implementation of this, so that we can run that get method or the base page, so it'll instantiate and get that. bbc.com/news. So we're going to get that, but we're also going to return a new instance of that page object. So we use page factory. Hopefully you know what that means. If not, that's another video to look into. Initialize, so that initializes the page object and all the elements, HTML elements. So the code knows you're on that page. Alright, cool. So let's go back to the step definitions. So that's done. We've actually started our first Cucumber step completed. Next one, the user selects something. That string argument is obviously going to be the top bar link. So let's use a navigation surface again. Select top bar link. Create a method to select top bar link. And now we're going to use the home page that has now been instantiated and everything. And we're going to select homepage dot select top bar link. Doesn't exist yet, so we're going to create it. I think that would be better if it was a bit more specific. Select with a link. Okay. This is messed up. Of course, it should not be like that. Okay, but now we need to have our web elements. And that means CSS selectors. Find by. So I prefer to use CSS. So now let's go to the home page and find that element and get this bloody thing done. Home page. So we get inspect element. So it's always check your selector in the find Control F. So there's 3 of these. So that's not a reliable CSS selector. So I go up the channel, see if there's any other reliable sources. So that's an ID called orb navlinks. And look, just one selected. That's definitely a stable selector. Go back. CSS done. So the select weather link method will weatherlink.click. But in doing so, because it's a method that goes from one page to another, actually it shouldn't be void, it should return the type of the web page. See, done. Now, ideally, see, because we have the regex here, this should take a parameter such as a string or an enum, which then the logic can be passed further down. But anyway, we haven't got time for that. So the next one is validating that local weather is displayed. I'm not going to go into that today, but you get the gist. So we have the base page, we have the BaseTest, we have the navigation service. Now let's run this thing. There you go. This is the basic template required to run a very large automation-based project with Java and Cucumber. This is everything you need, and you can build on this project structure now for bigger and bigger automation type projects. This structure could also include API tests as well. So we have a domain here. This domain contains pages. We could also have another layer known as, we could even organize it further with a controller layer, which will then simulate, okay, that's in the wrong location, but this could be up over here. And that would simulate a client, API client. So we could have an API client for doing API tests and also UI tests. Alright, thank you guys for listening to this tutorial. If you have any questions, comment, and I will reply as soon as possible. I will be putting the GitHub link into the description of this video, and I'll also be adding the steps into the description of this video as well. You see the steps in the first part of the video. I added the rest of the steps here. So I'll add these to the video, it'll be clear for you guys. Keep on testing, guys. Keep on testing, people. Au revoir, have a nice day, goodbye. Goodbye, guys. See ya. Catch you later. See you later.